No pressure. No pressure, lads. We're going to have like a 45 minutes conversation together, like going and like making it very casual. The idea is really to hear your thoughts about things. And then we'll go with 15 minutes of questions. So for everyone, prepare it. We'll go through those questions at the end of it. Okay? Could I have a little introduction from both of you? We'll start with Ryan. Would love to hear more about you. And like, the theme is like building trust in AI. Is trust a big issue at the minute? Like, tell us more about that.
Yes, so first and foremost, thank you all for coming today and spending your evening with us. I'm Ryan O'Halloran. I lead our EMEA digital native business at Anthropic. I've been at Anthropic for just over a year, which, fun fact, that's more than 70% of the company at this point. But originally from California, born and raised there, living in the UK now for about 6 years. I think trust is the foundation of every successful partnership. And the reason why I'm excited to be here today is Fin was a very early adopter of Anthropic. And I think one of the main reasons why we were successful in this relationship is because there was that trust early on in working through those initial hurdles, in working through that initial growth. We were talking about this before, but like not everything was perfect day one when the models launched, right? But that early stage trust allowed us to build this successful partnership.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. Jordan, would love to hear about you. And is it a thing as well at Intercom? Like trust is something?
Thanks everybody for coming and spending your evening with us. Really appreciate it. And thanks to Anthropic for joining us here. We're huge fans of Anthropic at Intercom. We use you for everything. You're kind of powering our business at this point. Yeah, trust. So I'm Jordan Neal, Intercom COO, but I've spent the last 3 years since we launched Fin, kind of like Fin has been my life, my AI agent, the AI agent for customer service. I've been involved in, designing the product, building the product, but increasingly more in bringing the product to market and working with customers and prospects to get them to adopt Fin. We were chatting about this before, like there is a massive technology overhang. The technology is capable of way more today than people are actually getting from it. And a big part of the challenge is connecting people to the capabilities. And a big unlock there is trust. For us, Fin represents your brand. It is talking to your customers on your behalf. So it's essential that you trust it to represent it well. So that's like incredibly important. So it's both like on the two angles. We have to make sure that Fin is trustworthy and has the capabilities, but also that you believe that it is trustworthy, believe that you should trust it. And both of those things are a big part of that.
You're jumping in straight into Fin. I'm not sure if everyone knows about Fin. So like, could I see who is using Fin already today? Okay, so we have a good group of people. Claude, anyone using Claude at the minute? Anyone using Claude Code at the minute? Yeah, we love this one. Like, good one. Jordan, maybe if you can give like a elevator pitch about like what is Fin? What can you tell to the crowd?
Yeah, so Fin is an AI agent that does the job of customer service. So it's doing the work of customer service and expanding beyond that into customer experience more generally. So like the way you should think about it is it handles the job of like a tier 1, tier 2 customer support rep. It handles you set it up and train it and teach it about your business, and then it handles on your behalf the customer experience from the beginning of the conversation through to solving the complex problems for you, certainly the simple troubleshooting things, but also more complex processes that you might have. And then when needed, when it can't or shouldn't respond, handing over to your human team in an effective way. So that's it. Like that's probably a theme of what I've been thinking about is I think there's basically 2 places to create economic value these days. And one is either the fundamental models, providing the fundamental capability that we're all using to develop things, or providing something that is doing work, doing an end-to-end job or as much of an end-to-end job as is possible for a business in a useful way.
So if I have a problem with Claude Code, I'm going to speak to Fin, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, super cool. Ryan, can you tell us a little bit more about Anthropic and like the different products that you're doing at the minute? People are knowing it a little bit here, but like if you had the elevator pitch as well.
Yeah, we have a good group to here today of active users, which is lovely. But Anthropic is a frontier lab focused on building AI that is helpful, honest, and harmless. And that is the core mission of the company.
Super nice segue into my next question. What is trust? And like, tell us a bit more about like the fundamentals at Anthropic. I think it's pretty interesting topic for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think trust, when everyone hears about trust and safety, right, I think sometimes you can kind of roll your eyes and be like, oh, it's a marketing word, it's a buzzword. I think it's fundamentally different at Anthropic. Like how we think about trust and safety is integrated into the products. How do you limit hallucinations? How do you limit customer-facing issues? How do you make sure that these models are acting in a way that has that trust and safety in mind? And when I first joined, I was incredibly impressed with Dario and what the business was doing in terms of like slowing down products, not launching models until they're certain they're ready, regardless of, external pressures. If we need to launch this, we need to catch up. It's like, no, these need to be safe. They need to be reliable. I think like a really good example of this is we work with Spotify quite closely, and they built a internal code modernization tool on Claude. And in the recent earnings call that Spotify CEO was talking about this, he said, we haven't written a line of code since December. And you don't get to that type of usage and that type of a commitment from a customer unless they have 100% trust in your business and in the partnership. And I think like actions speak louder than words here. So when you see these customers and you see these examples, this is the foundation of the business. This is the foundation of the models, making sure they're acting in a way that have the customers and the consumer's best interest in mind.
So Anthropic is known for having those very deep fundamentals rules. Is it something that we have as well at Intercom, like Jordan, like something that is similar, and like how does it work on the top of an LLM like Anthropic?
So slightly different for us, I suppose. Like the like all of this is essentially we work at a different layer, I suppose, right? Like part of the challenge there's different challenges. The challenge that Anthropic has is everybody is using Anthropic's models in weird and wonderful ways, in ways you guys are never going to predict. And like being the safety, the trust and safety, not just being a buzzword at Anthropic, rings so true. Everybody I deal with in Anthropic, just like it's clear that this is you feel like a moral obligation to the world that this is going to happen, AI is going to happen, it needs to happen in a really good way and safe way, which is great. So that's a hard challenge. We have another kind of a different hard challenge in that, again, like I said earlier, Fin represents your business. So it needs to, you need to trust that it is always going to represent your business well. So like one of the, if you're using Claude Code yourself, or you build an AI agent for internal use, often it's expert users, people who, if it gets the answer slightly wrong, or it does something maybe like not perfect, that's still useful, still good and fairly harmless, because an expert user is analyzing the output and identifying like, oh, that's almost right, that's useful, I'm going to tweak it. Speaking to end users of your business, they cannot evaluate whether the answer is correct or not. So it's a much higher standard for end user facing capabilities. So like, there's probably lots of deep things we can talk about here about how to enable that, again, the themes of how do you actually get the product to be trustworthy and be perceived as trustworthy. But like as a go-to example, one of the big innovations from Fin early on, Fin launched in early 2023. It was the first product like this in this space. And probably the biggest innovation I had at the time was it said, I don't know. Like it was very hard to get an LLM at the time. It's still hard to get it to try to please you, try to give you a plausible answer. Somebody actually in the audience, was like, "Hey, guess my birthday." Giving an answer, you've got a 1 in 365 chance of getting it right. That's like fairly decent odds. Let's give it a go. Whereas we can't allow that to happen. So how do we get Fin to not answer when it isn't sure about the answer? That's like one of the big areas where we have to build trust.
Ryan, anything else to add on this?
I think that resonates incredibly well within the go-to-market sphere. Like before AI was a thing, I'd always tell my sales team, like the most powerful thing you can tell a customer is, I don't know. Like the worst situation you can be is sitting there on a call, telling them about the product, they're asking you questions, and you just keep rambling on, pretending like you know what you're talking about, and then you have to backtrack the next conversation. And when you can be honest in this world where you are interacting with AI, and AI can actually come to you and say like, I'm not certain about this, you should check this other resource, or not hallucinating because the actual foundation is built on something where it has that we'll talk about this in a minute, but like constitutional AI is something that we have built into these models. And it's like, how do you make sure that the outputs are looking at something foundational in the models to make sure that they're not coming up with fake answers just to give a 1 in 365 shot?
Let's continue on this constitutional, which is not an easy one to say. Tell us a bit more about like what's the take on Anthropics on this?
Yeah, so constitutional AI. Can we do another show of hands? How many people have seen this or heard of this? Okay, pretty good. So it's a fundamental idea or principle that Anthropic has built out, which pulls in data sets like the UN's Human Rights Declaration or Apple's Terms of Service, general trust and safety principles. And so when the models are operating, they can actually look at these foundational elements and check on this so that the outputs are actually precise and it's actually building trust and safety into the models. You can imagine if AI was being used without something like this, that is a foundational element, it could just be like, well, actually, I think I could take this route and give an answer that will be somewhat successful, or I should take a hard stance because this is what that foundational element of these LLMs are built on. So the models are taking that into account when the output is occurring.
And Jordan, when we are hearing that, anything similar that we can apply to the Intercom approach? And like, I'm thinking end user experience, particularly like people that are setting up Fin. Like, do you have any structure or reflection around this?
Well, the analogy I have is actually, it's much less inspiring than Anthropic, which is just the idea that Fin should, the intent is that Fin turns up to work on day one as an experienced customer support rep, let's say. That's one of the roles Fin plays. It plays other roles. But Fin turns up to work as an experienced customer support rep. It already comes preloaded with, imagine years of experience in doing that job well. It knows what good, courteous, high-quality customer experience is. And again, you should be able to trust that it is going to do that. Like, again, I used this example earlier, like Fin is never going to swear at your customer, for example. So you should never have to tell Fin, by the way, don't swear at the customer. Like Fin's just going to know that. And then you can focus on, if you are able to outsource that to us, then you get to put all of your effort into how do I train Fin on the differentiated customer experience I want to give. What's our business's opinion about what good customer experience is? And we just are going to focus on doing that and trust that Fin has these foundational concepts built in. I have a question for Ryan, actually, if that's okay. The idea of you're finding the constitutional AI, this focus on trust and safety. I'm guessing it's, you would say, I think it's true, it's being effective for you in the market. That's part of what Anthropic's success is.
Absolutely. I think, one of the things we haven't really talked about is regulated industries that we both operate in, right? And when you are launching AI, if you think about last year, it was we're going from pilots to production, right? Last year it was, all right, how do I make sure that these AI models don't hallucinate in a demo that I'm showing in front of my company? This year it's, how do I make sure that millions of customers in a regulated industry are using my product and I can sleep through the night? It's a huge shift from just hey, let's sample, let's test, into now we need to think about ROI. Now we need to be thinking about production use cases. Now we need to think about regulated industries, which have guardrails in finance and healthcare. And these become absolutely necessary in order to succeed. And I think that's been a lot of the success, is our hyper-focus on enterprise, our hyper-focus on trust and safety, and being ruthless about going after that direction.
Yeah, I think that's those regulated industries are a great example for us of people might be surprised, but there's different levels of, I think we're preaching to the choir in this audience based on how familiar everybody seems to be with AI. But I think there's a big part of the market that is still, back to this technology overhang, who are still not convinced, they aren't aware of nor convinced that AI could do the job of customer service at all, that you would trust it talking to your customers. And then I think even folks who get that are surprised that something like Fin is being used in healthcare and financial services. And some of maybe our version of constitutional AI, some of the things that are built deeply into Fin is Fin will not give clinical advice, for example. Even if you try to Fin will stick to certain guardrails by not giving clinical advice, not giving financial advice. There's a great use case we shared recently or a great medical company in the US, is using Fin to help with prescription refills. But it's very important that Fin is helping grease the wheels. It's helping the person with all of like the heavy lift, making it easy as possible for the person to request the refill, help them judge if that is the right thing to do. But Fin is not making the decision to issue the refill. It is then handing over in a nicely packaged way, handing that over to the clinician to make a well-informed decision that they have to take the responsibility for making. And that's like a fine line. Fin's doing loads of work for you there, but it's very important that it doesn't go too far.
We hear about this a lot too, of like human in the loop. I think a lot of you have probably heard this term. I've seen some heads nod here, but I think it's incredibly important to, as a business, as a startup founder, as somebody who's running a product line, to think about like, where do you let AI run, and then where do you make sure you still have that human in the loop? And these regulated industries are a perfect example. It's like until regulation comes out, until regulation is pushed to say, here are the guardrails where in financial services you can use it for this specific use case, but this one you can't. I think it's very important to be critical of where this is going to be used and the impact it's going to have.
That's probably that's probably another area where there might be overlap. Actually, is some of the most forward-thinking companies we work with in these regulated industries. They are using Fin and other AI tools for other parts of their business, but they're using Fin and working with the regulators in their countries. Like we and the company are helping the regulator themselves think through what is the best way of adapting to this technology.
Yeah, you see Dario, Daniela, the whole leadership team pushing this quite a lot, like pushing for regulation, pushing for more safety within AI, because they want to, make sure that as this industry is moving at the pace it's moving, the guardrails are in place.
There is a tension there, though. Like the example for Fin is the way Fin could be maximally safe is if it only regurgitated literal sentences from your help center, for example. But that would have limited utility. Part of the value of Fin is for it to make like some of the most like delightful experiences it does is where it makes useful inferences, logical inferences from the context you've given it. So like A is true and B is true, therefore it's very reasonable to say C. It's a fine line between if you eliminate that inference, you maximize safety. But if you eliminate it, you also limit the utility. Any way Anthropic thinks about that, like these things, like the maximally safe thing to do would be not to ship new models, probably, right? Which is not an option. So, how do you think about that?
I mean, this kind of builds into the product lifestyle and just like the approach to AI at Anthropic, where like this is where go-to-market, I think, plays a huge role in this. Like you have the researchers, you have the foundation of Anthropic, where that is the most important part, creating the models, building the models. And then go-to-market fits in there, where we're working with companies like Fin to understand, all right, which data sources should you pull in? What prompt injection should you provide to make sure that the outputs are structured in the way that you want it? What is the context you're providing? I think a lot of customers are now kind of understanding this outside of the API, thanks to Claude Code and Cowork, where if you think about Claude Code and Cowork, it's very successful if you have a bunch of MCP integrations that's pulling data, right? If you're using it independently, it can still be powerful, but it's taking that next step when it has those integrations. It's kind of the same thing within go-to-market of making sure that we're working with our customers on the Claude Developer API to have those correct MCPs, have those data sources integrated so that it can make those right decisions.
And Ryan, let's continue on like the conversation on GTM. Like you're part of the sales organization. How is it to speak with customers that can be maybe a little bit more reluctant or like careful at the minute? Like tell us a bit more about like how those conversations are happening.
Yeah, I was telling, we were talking before this, I'm like, I've never been more tired at the end of every day, but yet more excited to come into work every day because this industry is moving at such a pace, right? And I think one of the things that is important for us with our customers is making sure that we're providing a product that checks all the boxes. And so what I mean by that is like in Europe, obviously EU hosting is incredibly important. How do we solve that? Through our partners. We work with AWS, we work with GCP, we can allow you to host in the EU and keep that data centralized. So our job here is to really educate our customers on like, all right, what industry do you work in? Financial services. Okay, where are you located? In Europe. All right, the best way to consume our model might be through Vertex and Bedrock, and here how you're going to do that, and here how you're going to adapt. But I think the hardest thing about this industry is a lot of customers want to know what's coming in 24 months. It's very hard to predict, right? I think you would agree too. Is like with Fin, it's like how do you plan the product roadmap when this industry is moving so quickly and these models are becoming so powerful and so valuable within the business? So our job really there in what we're seeing the shift is it's no longer becoming switching between the fastest cheapest model. It's choosing the partnership that's going to be there for the long term. So we're seeing customers say, hey, we think Anthropic is going to be our long-term partner here. We want to invest in this relationship. We want to work with you guys closely on our roadmap and keep us up to date on what's coming.
Superb. You mentioned Spotify earlier. Any other like companies that you can mention or stories that you can tell us?
Bunch. We could sit here for the next 20 minutes. But one of my favorite ones is actually L'Oreal, and that's simply due to the fact like they were actually an early adopter. And their team, I was quite impressed when we were working with them, is they built basically a conversational analytic tool where if you think about this, I work in go-to-market. The biggest gap for me getting access to data is our RevOps and SalesOps team, right? I can't write SQL. I can't access these databases. I have to put in a request. With Claude Code, all of a sudden I can type, I want to see the data for my team for the last 12 months. What deals did we close? What industries were they in? Get some really good insights, right? We started to see that as a very popular use case across the industry where all of a sudden you give your BizOps team access to conversational analytics where they can just type, I want to see the data for the last 12 months. I want to see projections for the next 12 months. Boom, it spits it out. And the best part is now it can spit it out in like a very beautiful graph and actually present that in a meeting that same day. So that's been like my favorite part of hearing about like how quickly these teams can move, where before it would take days.
I'm with you on this one. Like CSM side, like attribution of our work was like brilliant with Claude, like surreal.
Yeah, we're all in on Claude Code internally in Intercom. Obviously, in engineering, we were like doubling our productivity in the space of months with Claude Code, but it's being used throughout the organization now. Like the CSMs, FP&A team, like everybody, AEs, everybody is. It's like democratizing access to this stuff, and everybody's being way more productive than they might have been otherwise. These things that you might have been actually, here's an interesting framing we use is AI is a force multiplier to your own agency. Like if you are a high agency person who wants to do, like you have a vision, you have something you want to do, you've got like, dedication, etc. You've previously often been, the bottlenecks of, I got to get approval from somebody else. I got to get somebody else to prioritize this thing. It's less important to them than it is to me, etc. Now you're just empowered to be able to do more and more yourself, which is a huge unlock. Can I chat about GTM trust?
On that, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jordan. Like with your experience, because like that's GTM side. Like you're speaking with tons of customers as well on our side, and like enterprise companies. Like, how is it? Like, tell us a bit more about like your perception.
So Fin is used by, I think it's like 8,000 customers doing millions of conversations every week on Fin, like across industries, across countries, across company sizes, like small startups, like lots of like the new hot startups use Fin, through to Snowflake as a customer, for example, like the biggest of enterprises. And like some of the things that work for us in GTM and trust, like just the first thing, one of the first big things is Fin is, we kind of pioneered this as well. Fin is doing a job, right? Does a job end to end. And the way we charge for that is you pay Fin when it does the job. You don't pay for Fin if it doesn't do the job. So, and we define the job as if the person has a problem, Fin gets an answer, and it doesn't need to be handed to a human. So you only pay for Fin when it does that. And that just immediately aligns incentives. We're putting our money where our mouth is, right? We are sticking our hand up to, we can do this job really well for you. And the way we're proving that to you is by only charging you when it does, which aligns incentives between us and the company. The company obviously wants more work to be done more cheaply and more effectively than they can otherwise. So they're happy to pay us more. It aligns within the R&D team. Like everybody in the R&D team knows what their job is. Like, how do we make this product more useful and reliable and trustworthy? But it even actually incentivizes sales. Like the sales, like there's no, like part of the problem with SaaS and like the old, like why, there's a lot of pressure on traditional SaaS businesses is in a seats-based pricing model, there's a lot of unused product. There's a lot of people paying for something and not getting the value from it. Whereas with Fin, it's all like it's all directly tied to value generated. So there's no dead revenue. So the sales team are incentivized. The whole sales and solutions org is incentivized to get the customer to success with the product. The better success we get you, the better for us. Versus like, hey, we've sold you this thing. Good luck. Like, talk to you at renewal time.
So you took a risk originally. Like you were here when like Fin pivoted and like saying like we take the risk of like just charging on the outcome.
Yeah, people thought it was kind of nuts at the time. Like it was controversial within Intercom, certainly out in the industry, and certainly at the time when we launched Fin, the average resolution rate, like that's the number. The number is, of all the conversations you're giving to Fin, what percentage does it handle? And the average resolution rate was the kind of mid-20s. So that was, we were doing a lot of work and only getting charged for some of it, only getting to charge you for some of it. The average resolution rate now is about 70%. It's like increased by almost like a percentage point per month since we launched. And that's just a bet on, we think we can do this job better and better over time, and you'll be happy with that. So yeah, that was definitely a bet and a gamble.
There's a great story written by Owen, like fairly recently on LinkedIn, that I think Anthropic loves as well, because like we were one of like the early adopters, and like you were mentioning that previously.
Yeah, it was very, very early adopters, but I love like this kind of was similar at Stripe, and it's similar at Anthropic in the sense of utilizing our API on a usage-based approach. It lowers the barrier of entry for creators. And it's not just startup founders, it's creators at large companies like Intercom who maybe want to play around with something on the side and then be like, oh, wow, we created a proof of concept in an hour that I can go and actually show internally. Like my favorite example was I was at a FSI event where it was just the largest banks in Europe, right? And one of the kind of C-level execs there was like, hey, I have all of these ideas and I have a hard time visualizing it for my team. And there's that barrier to entry because that person isn't technical. And now they're just using tools like Lovable to actually generate these interfaces and show an MVP. And it's so cool to actually see that kind of like democratize access to these technical products. That's been my favorite part because it is tied to that, like your success is our success. So if that MVP is built, that MVP is successful, and you launch that MVP on Claude, it's like we're all successful together.
Yeah, the usage-based pricing model for Claude has been great. So we're about to, like everybody at Intercom uses Claude Code, and we're about to roll out Claude Enterprise, which is like Claude Co-work and all that stuff to everybody. And my understanding is that you have two pricing models there. You can either choose to pay per seat, or you can just choose to pay for the tokens. And we've decided to go with the token approach. It just makes way more sense for us. We think that is what it enables us to give it to everybody. Like there's a world where if we're paying per seat, we have to think about like, oh, does that person really need a seat? Are they really going to get the value out of that? And by moving to the usage-based model, we can just open it up. We will probably end up paying you a lot more over time. Than we, because we might start out spending less than we would if we were paying per seat, but as everybody starts using it more and more, we expect we'll pay more and more to Anthropic, but we'll probably be very happy with that. Don't use that against me in negotiation, but like I imagine that it's because it's productive. Like there's no dead tokens. There's no token not being productively used to some degree.
So we've seen how to build the trust, like the foundations of it. We've seen like how do you bring it to the market. There's a big topic at the minute, which is the speed of innovation. Like yesterday, we did some announcements, Jordan. Tomorrow, we literally do another announcements as well. Anthropic is known for like the pace of change and announcements as well, and like new models and evolution iterations. We can imagine some customers being a little bit worried of that, or like some buyers particularly saying like, how do you maintain the trust and like the speed of execution? So like, I'm really wondering how you're approaching that with your customers and those conversations. So both of you, like, what's your take on this?
I think the biggest thing is like safe does not equal slow, right? Like those are not correlated. You can still be safe and you can still move fast. And how we help our customers is making this decision as simple as possible and giving them the ammo internally. I think I kind of look at it as, when I was at Stripe, I was there before we had our SOC 2 Type 2. That was a very tough conversation to convince companies to work with us at scale when we didn't have that in place. Once you have that in place, it's a checkbox, right? And so when we go into these conversations and we talk about constitutional AI, we talk about trust and safety as our core value. We talk about what we're doing in kind of pushing regulation and pushing safety features. We're giving those decision makers at the company the ammo they need internally to make sure that they're making the right decision.
Jordan?
Yeah, like the version of this for us is like we are, there's something almost funny about it. I think this is common in companies at this point where we're shipping so fast, the product is shipping so fast that sales reps and CSMs actually can't keep up with what is being shipped, and we're giving functionality to our customers at a pace that they can barely keep up with. And we need to give them as much guidance as possible. So what we're doing there is things like as we give people more advanced features. Maybe another differentiator for Fin in this space is we're really the only credible player in this world who has a self-serve product. So there was 8,000 customers. Some of them are Snowflake, and some of them are a two-person startup who they would have no interest in, and we wouldn't be able to economically provide hands-on support with them. So we give lots of tools for you to be able to understand, adopt, and trust the functionality that we're giving to you. So an example is, one of the things you can do is a procedure like that prescription refill example I give. You can, in this natural language mixed with, you can opt into deterministic parts of this. Basically, you describe your process in, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Fin will execute that with agentically. So it will skip steps if it knows it can. It will go back and clarify things if it needs to. And it's this beautiful UI for writing this thing, and Fin very reliably, thanks to things like Sonnet, executes it very well. But writing that is just hard to do, actually. It's a hard thing to write that in a reliable way. The analogy I use is like if I ask you to write down your refund process on a piece of paper and hand it to 1,000 smart customer support reps, human support reps, how consistently do they execute that procedure? It's just a hard job. So we've had to do things like build tooling, it's AI, it's turtles all the way down, it's AI the whole way down. We give you an AI assistant that helps you write the procedure. And then you can write what we call a simulation test for that procedure. You write a test saying, okay, for this type of customer in this scenario, here's the outcome that's important to me that happens. And Fin will simulate the end user, provide its response and judge its response, do all of these things in loops to be able to build confidence for you that the Fin is going to reliably do the thing you intended it to do. And then when that test simulation fails, another AI will help you identify why. Is it something Fin is doing wrong? Very unlikely. Is it the procedure that you've written, or is it the test you've written? Actually, the test can be poorly written. So it's just like lots of guardrails and observability and understanding. So the announcement we made yesterday was yet more tooling to help you understand and identify what Fin and your humans actually are doing, so you can spot when it's doing the wrong thing and intervene in the appropriate ways. It's just like that's the lots and lots of tooling to help you adopt this in a way that you can trust.
Even for the world of enterprise, like enterprise customers that could be a bit more slow to adopt those, like buying this approach, like do you see that like landing well with them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd love to get your take on what you're seeing enterprises doing. It seems I see there are certain enterprises that get it and are running towards this, and like a common thing is sometimes. Can you afford for Fin to make a mistake? Imagine like an e-commerce business, and can you afford for Fin to get a price wrong or a refund policy wrong? And like we do everything we can to make sure that Fin is reliable in these things. But do your humans ever get stuff wrong? Like people have this unrealistic expectation that the humans are like Fin can be remarkably more accurate than the average human. And there are companies, even enterprises, who get that and are willing to, like, as long as they have the observability so they know when things go wrong, they are able to iterate and improve and get to this. You get other enterprises that are very phobic and very slow moving and very scared. But I see SMBs in exactly the same way. I see certain SMBs who are like running towards this and embracing this, and other SMBs who still are on a bit of incredulity that this is even possible. So it's not. It's the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed, and I'm actually not seeing, in the way you might expect, segmentation by company size. Yeah.
In enterprise, we kind of look at it as internal versus external use cases, right? I think if you look at the last year, startups are obviously fast adopters. Like enterprises are moving incredibly quickly, but a lot of internal use cases. So Claude Code, Claude Cowork, the L'Oreal use case for internal data. But we're starting to see the push into these external use cases. So like Fin is a great example of an external use case, right? Another customer is SAP. They created a product called Joule for consultants. This kind of, I think, like borders the line between that internal and external because it is enterprise software and it is kind of more of an internal. But you think about that product and you think about what it's doing. It's providing consultants with insights into the industries in which they're working, right? And when you think about this and you think about this like ethos of trust and safety, that is the perfect example of where you need to make sure that the information being provided is accurate and harmless, right? If I am a consultant in healthcare and I'm trying to understand a certain vertical, I need to make sure that the data I'm collecting is accurate. And so these tools, when they are externally facing, there's that higher level of risk. So I think enterprises are being smart about how they're adopting this. They're adopting it internally. They're understanding the models. They're really getting kind of concrete examples. And then once they understand how these work, once they have their evals in place, once they're able to accurately track this, then they're pushing those external use cases.
Superb. Thanks a lot. We are not yet at the point of the questions, but I hope you have some prepared. I see you, Robert. I want a question from you. Before wrapping up here, I would love to hear a little bit about your thoughts about the future. You said it just before, future is here. What about the future of future? Like, where are we going? Little tech, a little vision, and like particularly around trust. Do you think that trust is just a topic of today and like it's table stake, we'll convince them and we'll move on from that? Or is it going to be an ongoing conversation that we'll have?
I think it's table stakes, absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's any less important. And I think that's important to think about. And I always like to remind everyone, like everyone in this room, I think is like very integrated with tech and AI and all of this, but like we are still so early in the capabilities, the products, and kind of where this is going. I think we're like very early in this journey of what can come and what will come. And it's important that we're thinking about this in a safe, helpful, harmless way. But that doesn't mean that it's table stakes means it's any less important.
Superb. Jordan, what's your vision?
Yeah, so I think, trust is table stakes, essential, and going to just heighten over time. And for Fin, that's, as Fin takes on more and more, does more and more work for you, does more and more higher stakes for you, things for you, the trust, there's a foundation of trust which enables you to consider having Fin do something that you might have historically considered, too risky. And now, as you do that new thing, the bar for trust has gotten higher. So we'll just keep getting higher and higher and higher. And probably like the biggest, there's a couple of like big areas that we're expanding. Like Fin is, this is hubris to say, but we have largely cracked the job of customer service. Like the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. For Intercom's own customer support team, 82% of all of our customer service is being handled by Fin at this point. It's kind of remarkable. That's not what the average customer sees, right? The average customer is seeing much lower than that. So I think the technology is there. We just need to bring people to it. But we're starting. Fin is now, has earned the right to, go into more of our long-term vision, which is Fin doing all of your customer experience effectively from, day 0 to year 10, giving every one of your customers this amazing quality, personalized, charming, intelligent experience. And that's where Fin is getting into things like sales roles and customer success, where the trust equation is different. Like the upside is potentially bigger in things like sales because it's more directly revenue generating than cost saving, as people typically think about customer service. So that's great. But it also you're trusting more of your revenue generating to Fin is also higher stakes in a way. So I think trust is just going to keep being a critical part of the equation, and the bar will just keep getting higher and higher.
Superb. Ryan, any final thoughts on this?
No, thank you guys for having us. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for being a great audience. Excited to chat with some of you guys after this and hear more about what you're building, what you're working on. But thank you guys for also being so engaged tonight. Really appreciate it.
So we have some floating mics in the room. So like anyone has a question, and I see Robert raising the hand, and we have also in the back. So like let's start from the front, and then we'll go like towards the back.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. It's a very interesting conversation. We've touched a lot on trust in the sense of safety and tooling as well. What I would like to touch on is education. Right now, different senses. Right now, there's an education wave of all of us learning and teaching our teams on how to use AI, how to do stuff with AI. Ryan, you opened and said that Claude is capable of so much that people are not even aware of right now. How do you think about education in the next 6 months, let's say, and beyond that is very hard to say, but in the future, in both of your roles and in both of your use cases, especially looking at Fin, for example, the beginning was triaging, answering questions, but now it's going to explain you way more. So it's going to be more an educational resource as well for the users. And how do you feel is the future of trust depending on education as well?
It's an excellent question. This is huge for us. Like again, if I make this point that the technology, like Fin and AI generally, is capable of way more than people are getting from it today. So we feel a responsibility to educate people on what is possible. And that's why we've started to do things like, which will help all of our competitors as well. But like with a Fin angle, we're doing events like we have today. Like we have Fin Lab downstairs where we have, you can come in and bring us your customer support problems, and we will help you understand how Fin could solve those and like help bring you to the technology and educate you on those. And we have a series of events, like day-long workshops we've done around the world called Blueprint, which is trying to teach people how AI can be leveraged in their customer experience. And it's more than the technology, actually. It's more than just the technology. It's also things like Ruth, who is here from our customer support team, helping people with like large established customer support teams understand how jobs are going to change, how the org structure you have, like the roles you have, how that's going to evolve as a second order consequence of this. My favorite example, which we might need to redact from the video depending on how Anthropic's comms team thinks about it, but Anthropic is a Fin customer. And we love the support team in Anthropic, and we work really closely with them. And they get as much value, I think, from our own customer support team and the leaders there as they do from Fin, the product. And they are in the process of reorging Anthropic's customer support team to match the structure that we have at Intercom based on what we've learned and how to set up your team. So that's what I think about when you ask that question.
That was a great answer. I'll take a little bit of a different approach, which maybe wasn't the core part of your question, but it just sparked something in my mind where Anthropic actually has launched a beneficial deployments part of the business. And what this entails is it actually sits within the go-to-market org, which is quite unique. It's not separate. It's not the nonprofits team that is not part of go-to-market usually. It's like within our go-to-market org. And the core focus of this team is to focus on where we can deploy AI, where revenue is not the goal, the impact is the goal. And we're focusing on deploying at universities. So if we give universities, every single person has a, Claude Cowork, Claude Code license, like what is the impact of that going to be? How do we deploy this into developing countries? How do we deploy this in arts and societies, right? Where this actually would be utilized in ways that we're not even thinking of. I think my favorite part of working with customers on new products is them coming to us and showing us like, here's where the model's doing really well and helping us with our testing of early models and using this in this beneficial deployments era. Like there's so much impact that can be had, and we're actually hiring for that team. And so in Europe as well. So if anyone's interested, go online to our careers page.
Thanks a lot, Robert. Let's go maybe in the back. We had one.
Thanks. Jordan, I think you mentioned that only 2% of your customer support was handled by Fin today. Maybe I didn't get it right, but if that's the case, what would be the biggest barriers, like preventing you from going way much further?
So for Intercom's own support, it's 80%, 82% actually,
Okay.
of all of our customer service is being handled autonomously by Fin.
Thanks.
So the human support team is the same size today as it was 2 years ago, and is projected to be the same size in a year, despite our volume of support conversations tripling over that same period of time. And the support team are also giving a much higher quality of support. When they are needed, they're able to respond more quickly and give more time to customers, jump on calls and that kind of stuff. So Fin has enabled us to do way more work at a way higher quality with the same amount of people, which is remarkable. But that is not, we have a distribution. The P50 company sees a 70% resolution rate with Fin on the conversations that they give to Fin. There are many conversations they do not yet give to Fin because they're still building trust. So that's the main bottleneck to adoption here is people building trust that Fin will reliably represent their business in a great way and give correct answers, useful answers. And that's just, to a certain amount, they just need to see it, to believe it, and build gradual trust there. But you do get to a bottleneck. The big bottleneck ends up being, which is really interesting, is for Fin to do the really valuable stuff, it needs to be connected into your data and your systems to be able to understand more and more about the customer and the circumstance and take action on their behalf. And we get to a point where the customer support team trusts Fin. The customer support team is like, yeah, Fin's going to do the right job. But now they need an API they need an API to an internal system so that Fin can get the data or take action. And now they need to go convince an engineering team to prioritize making that work, to doing that work. And the engineering team is oversubscribed, building their own product, so there's low incentive. So that's probably the biggest bottleneck, even inside Intercom. Actually, that's what there is a very concrete plan for us to get to 90% resolution rate over the next year. But the big unlock there is us providing more and more APIs for Fin to use, which there's a couple of interesting things here. First, things like Claude Code have made that much easier for us to do. So we're basically, whatever roadmap we had of support that we were going to build for Fin there, we are chomping through much more quickly than we would have otherwise. So that's one thing. And then the other more forefront interesting one is computer use. So Claude came out with a feature. If you can keep up with Anthropic's roadmap, I'm impressed. But the computer use from Claude is dramatically better now than it used to be. And that might, the bottleneck, there's two bottlenecks for computer use, obviously, is a way where you could say, instead of having to build an internal API for Fin, just give Fin a login to your internal tool, and Fin will go and click buttons and do the thing that your humans do, which is great. But there's been two bottlenecks to that until now. One is it has been too slow and too expensive and too unreliable for computer use to do that. That might be unlocked now, or unlocked good enough for us to be able to use it. The second one is trust. So the CS team now needs to be saying, hey, the support team needs to be like, hey, don't worry about building the API. I just want to give my AI unfettered access to our internal tooling. Is that cool with you? And that's the next frontier of trust building for us. Is how could you trust that Fin, given access to your internal tooling, is not going to run amok and do things it shouldn't do. So it's an interesting frontier for us. That might be one of the big unlocks for adoption. And we have we have pretty great technology for that. It's just whether people are ready to actually adopt that is an interesting question.
Love the answer. Very comprehensive. We have a question in the front here.
I will give shorter answers.
No.
I understand the subtext.
It's really cool to explain. I think for some people as well, it's helping to understand the full picture. We're going on the left.
Yeah. Thanks for organizing this event. Two questions. Firstly, Jordan, you've said you've largely cracked the customer service task. And so are you going to use the pipeline and technology you've built to apply to a different vertical? And secondly, and I guess Ryan can tell us some more, what kind of mode can you build as a business and avoid other people recreating similar stack based on Anthropic's models? Is it mostly US integrations? You were speaking about maximizing the number of APIs you want to create to give developers more access to your tool. What kind of mode can you create when you're building off of their model? Thanks.
Okay. So we're probably the first thing we're doing is giving Fin. So if I use that analogy of Fin turns up to work on day one as an experienced support rep, knows all the general knowledge of what good customer support looks like. And then you have to teach it how to be a good support rep at your business. Like, what is your specific domain expertise? What are the ways in which you want to interact with businesses? You can already teach Fin to do things beyond a strict definition of customer support. Like, customer support is a blurry role already. Like, there's a certain amount of customer support that looks like customer success, like get people to be successful with the product beyond maybe the literal question they're asking. And there's a little bit of customer support in some orgs, which is sales. It's like, hey, I think like here's how you would do that thing, but if we have this other feature that you guys aren't using that might be the right thing for you. So Fin will already do a certain amount of that. But we are giving Fin deep capabilities in those other disciplines. So we are teaching Fin how to be a great SDR, how to be a great AE, how to be a great CSM. Sorry, Jonathan. We're giving Fin those like deep experience as well. And again, to this vision of Fin being able to handle the whole customer experience from day 0 to year 10. And there's some interesting ramifications of this. Like, you know, I'm conscious of the length of my answer, but I'm going to risk it here. There are some things that we take for granted in how the world works, which it turns out might just be a consequence of we don't have enough humans. So the go-to example is, you know, in a large customer support organization in the past, you might have a different team doing email support from doing phone support, from doing chat support. And part of the reason there is because the skills are different. Like you can do 20 emails simultaneously, asynchronously. You can only do one phone call at a time. Like the actual job looks different. So you end up with different orgs, different management chains, hiring for different skills with different KPIs and performance metrics. Kind of everybody in that industry took that for granted as just an essential complexity of running customer support. And then AI comes along, and it turns out that actually doesn't make sense. Like, Fin will do your emails and your chat and your voice, and it would be kind of strange to hire 3 different Fins or 3 different products to do those 3 different things. I mean, that's a fairly obvious example, and maybe tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 support is another one where you kind of think of those as essential properties of support, but they melt away. Maybe the slightly more far out thing that we believe is the lines between sales and support and customer success might be just as blurry. They might be, they might actually not be essentially different roles, just accidentally different roles because we haven't had enough humans to be able to deploy economically to those jobs. So that's where we're heading. Is like, we believe that Fin will be able to give this customer experience, which is far superior to what you could offer in the past, just because of limitations that are now not real. And that, but anyway, my answer, I'm going to give Ryan a chance to answer this from his perspective. Here's my real answer to the how do you stop from being disrupted. I think you have to do if you're going to do this B2B doing a job for a business, I think you have to aim at doing as much of as big a job as you can end to end. So you need to do, I think a product that can do your whole customer service end to end is fundamentally a much better product than a Copilot type product that can only assist your humans, right? So you've got to get a big enough problem and solve it really well so that somebody can't just, very simply replicate the little bit that you're doing. The problem is, once you're doing a problem that's big, that is truly big enough, you probably get onto the radar of an OpenAI or an Anthropic in terms of they are eventually going to have to come after your TAM as well, because they have huge ambitions and huge valuations and huge growth. So it's this danger zone, right? You need to be big enough that you can survive, but then you suddenly the apex predators kind of like start paying attention to you as well. Sorry.
No, I think it's a good answer. The thing I'd add there is just relentless focus and execution on a very specific path. What I mean by that is, if you look at the industry right now, there's plenty of providers kind of in the similar space solving difficult problems in parallel. 90% of the customers I talk to who use Claude Code are also using Cursor. And there's a reason. It's because Claude Code is that people love the CLI. It's very specific. It's very focused on developers. And Cursor solves a lot of the ancillary aspects that they're looking for. And you might have a Windsurf. You might have another tool, right? It's usually 2 or 3 tools. It's not just an individual tool. And that's a very simple example. But I think about some of these other industries, Lagora, for example, or Harvey. That's a customer of ours. Like, that is a difficult problem to solve, selling legal AI. And if you go after that and you build a bunch of go-to-market folks, like, they have a very unique talent to work with lawyers, understand the sales process internally at a law firm. Like, that is a tough challenge, and that is something very specific that they're going after. And I think they're doing an incredible job.
I'm not worried about my job.
Good.
Just a little plug, and like I'll come to the question here, but like we have at the back of the room the opportunity to try on speaking to Fin through like an headset, and you can chat directly to Fin, which is pretty cool. You can do it downstairs as well, and we have a couple of people that can show Fin. So it was like the little plug here. Are we doing one more question, 1 or 2 more questions? We can do like over there. If you can stand up.
Yeah, I have a quick question, very practical question. So we convince decision makers, we convince directors C-level to use AI. It's a corporate question or big companies question. So we implemented Fin, we implemented different type of products from Anthropic. How to convince regular users to use it? Because in corporate world, there are so many people who are not open to innovation, who struggle to adapt new things. Maybe you have best practices.
You probably have a good, like you see way more businesses, so you probably have a general answer here. But for us, like one of the things we did was just make it very easy for people to try this stuff out. So Claude, like I said, Claude Code is being used by everybody in Intercom now. But one of the Trojan horses there was we basically set up a bunch of skills and a bunch of MCPs and a bunch of harnesses and made it very easy for you to install this for what we called Claude for Data. C4D is like a tool in Intercom, which is effectively a thin wrapper around Claude, but it basically abstracts away all the setup required for you to ask questions of our Snowflake instance effectively. And you can be like, hey, I've got a business review with one of my customers. I'm an AE, and I have a business review with one of my customers next week. Help me prepare for that. And Claude will go and pull a bunch of data and autonomously decide what to do and give you a pretty good answer there. So you get from deciding to do something to getting something valuable to happen for you is near zero friction and literally minutes of time. And that just unlocks, once somebody has had one aha moment like that, they suddenly do fantastically wonderful things. They give Claude very hard questions over time. So that's been like the way we achieved it, is just make it very easy for people to try and get to that aha moment themselves.
And just to add up on that, Jordan, it's also for us, like leaders, to be thinking of it and like evaluating our people as well a little bit on this. Like we said it's a bit of a red flag if someone is not curious enough to be trying it. Like there's this mental shift at the minute. Like let them play, see the power of it, the impact of it once it has been built and like brought to people that are not technical enough. But once you start using it, the power is like surreal. So
yeah, I give the nice soft answer actually. Here's the hard answer. We for engineering, for example, last summer, we were like, cool, everybody's played with this stuff. You should get this now. How effectively you're using AI in your job is going to be a core part of your performance review. Like if you and we started it soft. If you're not effectively using AI, you're not going to be able to get more than a meets expectations. And it's going to quickly become, if you're not using AI effectively, you can't get meets expectations. So it's ultimately, at a certain point, you try and bring people to it, but at a certain point, to survive as a company, we have to make sure that this is happening. And thankfully, like, it's a cultural thing. If you're working at Intercom, you're excited by this stuff typically. But
they both kind of touched on this, but from a go-to-market function, it has to be topped down and bottom up. I think if you're top down forcing it, it's going to be very difficult. If it's bottom up, it's a good sign. Maybe it'll eventually happen, but C-level is the one who signs the check, right? You need to make sure that it's something that the people using the tool day to day is something they find value in and they actually are enjoying it. And it needs to be something that is a C-level initiative. So if you can get both of those to meet in the middle, that is the ideal outcome when working with a customer.
we're just at time. So one last question, I guess, Kelly. Super.
Yeah, I would have a question like for Fin team. So if I understood well, and you have said a quite interesting sentence at Jordan at the beginning, is that because you are dealing with customer service, you are dealing with people that don't know your internal processes, and they are directly linked to your turnover, like basically the money entering the company. So you started with the hardest thing in probably like the value chain of a company. So understanding how each of your customers are working and trying to make sure that an external person that is not part of the company has his problem solved. So what refrains you to cover the rest of the value chain, which is the internal communication between the different departments, where the Fin user would be an internal person inside the company that would ask a question to another service, where Fin would be like the kind of a link, and where probably like you have like a set of agents that would coordinate the different teams inside companies.
So if I understand the question correctly, it's like we started with the bit of the job, which was responding to customer queries. Yeah. There's another part of the job of customer service, which was coordinating internally with between departments. And why did we do that?
Yeah, and even like all the rest of the processes, like to make a company working, like so to run all the value chains, or like manufacturing, like supply chain, like procurement. Since that you mastered the process of understanding how a company is working and how to solve problems, why not not only like solving customer problems, but also solving the problem inside the companies? This
is a great question, and we should chat more about it over a drink, actually. But I'm going to answer. I'm just going to answer quickly. It's a really good question, and it goes to it's heavily overlapping. There's a lot of things that we're doing, like a lot of hard technical challenges that we've solved that would have infinite applicability in different parts of that you could use for very general things. It's very tempting for us to go there, but probably the thing that is part of our success is being ruthlessly focused on a specific job, like not doing like lots of different things kind of well, but doing one thing exceptionally well and going deep on that thing. I think that's been a good strategy, but it's not obviously the right strategy. Maybe we could have played for a bigger game and done kind of okay on that. It's an interesting question for sure. Thanks for it.
And just a little bit of context as well. There's 15 years of experience in like working in customer service, so like that was natural to go and like lean on like our expertise around.
But let me give you a very simple example here. It'd be very obvious for us to say the job of external customer service. There's a lot of overlap there with like an internal IT service management job, like customer service internally in your company. There's a lot of overlap there, certainly from a technology point of view. And maybe we'll do that eventually, but we have been very deliberate about deciding to be like the representative of your business externally. We think that's a big, hard challenge. And like Ryan said, like there's a whole ancillary things like the pricing model and the go-to-market motion and the branding and the events. There's a benefit we get from focusing on just that job, and which is, I say just that job, by the way, like in scope for Fin is roughly half of all knowledge work. That's what customer experience organizations in businesses make up, like somewhere between 40 and 50% of all knowledge work in the world. So it's a pretty big problem that we're going after. I don't think we need to get into logistics and things like that as well.
Thanks a lot. Like really proud of my Persian crew here. Like lots of questions. I'm sure we could spend the night like with those questions. So like we'll need to wrap it up, but like thanks a lot for you to travel over and like to come and like give this speech. Like lots of insight in this. I'm fairly sure like everyone took like lots of bits in it. So thank you for this. And like thanks all of you. What we're going to do now is like move towards like more drinks, nibbles, and networking. And we are here to answer all of your questions.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Thank you.